Businesses in Metro Manila are expected to take another hit from tighter pandemic restrictions. The Philippine Trade Chief admits the shift to Alert Level 3 could affect up to 200,000 jobs. This report from Warren de Guzman.
Personal services, including barbershops, have once again been forced to limit their customers after the National Capital Region was returned to Alert Level 3. Barber Santos is more than disappointed. He is afraid this latest tightening might force his employer to close permanently.
Hindi na rin ako sang-ayon sa ganyan Alert Level 3 na yan kasi lalong-lalo na vaccinated na tayong nakabakuna na tayo pero bakit kailangan pang ibalik yan mga yan? Sabi dati, pag nakabakuna ka na, pwede ka nang gumala.
After having experienced a bit more freedom during the fourth quarter of 2021, many loathed the return to a tighter alert level. But the FFCCCII believes the government won't allow more businesses to close, having changed its COVID playbook. It also believes the Omicron variant is less deadly and therefore less troublesome.
The good thing is that they're not making it indefinite. They're now doing it in 2-week segments, which means that they're taking a very calibrated approach, a very logical approach.
But the Employers Confederation of the Philippines still expects businesses to take a hit, especially those forced to take in less customers, such as restaurants and malls.
Marami na naman yung maguguto, marami na naman yung mawawala ng trabaho. Una-una, yung mga non-essentials na mga nagtatrabaho pa nasa probinsya yan eh. Pinatawag na yan, pumapasok na yan mga yan. Uuwi na naman. Anong gagawin dito sa Manila? Wala namang ayuda yung mga yan.
Trade Secretary Ramon Lopez says the higher alert level could cause as much as 200,000 workers to lose their jobs. But he notes the differences between Alert Level 2 and 3 are quite small and many businesses will still be able to generate some income.
Itong maganda sa alert level system natin ngayon, it allows all businesses to continue to operate, no? Maliban lang doon sa yung hindi na in-exclude natin. Ang pinaka-importante dito ay yung mailayo na natin yung ating bansa sa posibleng biglang pagdami ng Omicron cases.
Labor Secretary Sylvester Bello adds the government is prepared to provide affected workers financial aid, including an emergency employment or cash for work program for up to 40,000 informal workers and the COVID-19 Adjustment Measures Program, which will give formal workers a one-time cash assistance worth 5,000 pesos.
Ang magbibigay ng pangalan ay yung mga employers. Ibibigay sa amin yung pangalan nila. And after they give us the name of their employees who will be temporarily displaced, ibibigay namin yung sweldo nila o yung cash assistance sa kanilang employer at ang employer ang magbibigay doon sa kanyang empleyado. Kung gusto naman nila, we can send it immediately.
Bello says over 100 employers have already applied for assistance through CAMP, but he expects that number to grow. Warren de Guzman, ABS-CBN News.
Metro Manila residents rush to get vaccinated against COVID-19 amid rising infections in the region. Data show majority of patients now in intensive care units are unvaccinated. Vivian Gulia reports.
Residents fill this COVID vaccination site in Manila once more as the National Capital Region saw a spike in COVID infections. Many of them are seeking to get a booster shot or additional COVID vaccine dose. In Marikina City, the 4,500 daily slots for booster shot are fully booked until January 14th. To accommodate more residents, the local government plans to open additional jabbing sites.
Simula bukas ay magdadagdag tayo ng 3 pang vaccination site. May target output na 10,000.
The Department of Health says around 85% of COVID patients in Metro Manila's intensive care units are unvaccinated based on the December 28 data from some of the region's hospitals. The DOH and the vaccine expert panel again call on those eligible for a primary COVID vaccine dose or a booster shot to get inoculated.
Kapag bakuna kayo ng at least isa man lang, meron kayong proteksyon hanggang mga 52% against hospitalization. Hindi natin sinasabi against infection kasi napaka-bilis ng transmission sa ating Omicron.
Over 1.8 million individuals received a booster shot in the Philippines, while around 49.8 million have been fully vaccinated. That's short of the country's target to complete the COVID vaccine of 54 million Filipinos, or close to half of the Philippine population by the end of 2021. Presidential Advisor for COVID-19 Response, Secretary Vince Dizon, explains the devastation from Typhoon Odette slowed down the COVID vaccination in parts of the country. But he is optimistic the 2021 target can be achieved within the first week of January. The country is now eyeing to fully vaccinate 70 million Filipinos within the first quarter of 2022. Vivian Gulia, ABS-CBN News.
The chief of the Philippine Food and Drug Administration abruptly resigns. Eric Domingo exits from the agency, which oversaw the approval of COVID-19 vaccines for emergency use in the country. His stint was not without controversies, among them the illegal COVID vaccination of the Presidential Security Group. The FDA under Domingo also gave a special permit to select hospitals for use of the anti-parasitic drug ivermectin as a COVID treatment. Domingo told ANCX last year that dealing with clashing opinions from different sectors was among the most challenging aspects of his job. Still to come, a U.S. congressional panel probing the January 6th Capitol riot considers summoning its Republican colleagues.
More stories when The World Tonight returns after the break.
We're back on The World Tonight. A third pro-democracy media outlet in Hong Kong is shutting down. The independent online publication Citizen News will cease operations Tuesday. It attributes the move to what it describes as Hong Kong's deteriorating media, and this comes a month after Hong Kong authorities raided the office of the pro-democracy news site Stand News. A national security investigation last June also led to the closure of the Apple Daily tabloid. Its chief executive, Jimmy Lai, was arrested and jailed.
The U.S. House committee investigating the deadly January 6 attack on the U.S. Capitol is weighing whether to subpoena Republican members of Congress. Here's the full story.
A U.S. congressional probe of the deadly January 6 Capitol riot a year ago is now looking into issuing subpoenas to sitting Republican lawmakers. Democratic Representative Benny Thompson, who chairs the special committee, on Sunday told NBC News that his panel was examining whether it could lawfully subpoena current members of Congress. Quote, "I think there are some questions of whether we have the authority to do it," Thompson said, according to an interview transcript. "We're looking at it. If the authorities are there, there'll be no reluctance on our part." The panel is investigating the day thousands of supporters of former President Donald Trump, egged on by false claims of election fraud, attacked police, vandalized the Capitol, and sent lawmakers and then Vice President Mike Pence running for their lives. The committee also wants to know what happened inside the White House and is seeking communications between Trump allies in Congress and the former president's staff. Multiple people close to Trump, including conservative media TV hosts, urged him during the riot to make a televised speech telling his supporters to stop the attack. Trump waited hours before releasing a pre-recorded message. The special committee last month sent a letter to Representative Jim Jordan, a Republican and ardent Trump ally, asking for testimony about his telephone conversations with Trump on the day of the riot. Jordan said in a recent Fox News interview that he had, quote, real concerns about the committee's credibility, but was reviewing its letter to him. The committee sent a similar letter to Republican Representative Scott Perry. Perry declined to cooperate, posting on Twitter that the committee, quote, is illegitimate and not duly constituted. An appeals court ruled earlier in 2021 that the committee was legitimate and entitled to see White House records Trump had tried to shield from public view.
The Omicron COVID variant reportedly claims 2 lives in South Korea, while India starts to give COVID jabs to children 15 to 18 years old. The international COVID updates in this report.
South Korea reports its first deaths linked to the Omicron variant. The Yonhap news agency said 2 people who posthumously tested positive for Omicron appear to be the first deaths due to the strain in the country. But officials are still investigating the exact cause of death of the 2 patients, who were both in their 90s. The U.S. broke the single-day case count of COVID cases several times in the last week. The weekly increase in cases also registered a new pandemic high, with over 2 million new infections added to the tally. Based on the latest count by Johns Hopkins University, the U.S. has now breached 55 million cases and 826,000 deaths. America's top infectious disease expert says there is still a danger of a surge in hospitalizations.
You've got to be careful about that, because even if you have a less of a percentage of severity, when you have multifold more people getting infected, the net amount is you're still going to get a lot of people that are going to be needing hospitalization.
France becomes the 6th country in the world to report more than 10 million COVID infections since the start of the pandemic. France joins the United States, India, Brazil, Britain, and Russia in breaching the 10 million mark. French health authorities confirmed more than 200,000 daily COVID cases for a 4th straight day. Some big cities, including the capital Paris, have reimposed the wearing of face masks outdoors. India started vaccinating children 15 to 18 years old against the coronavirus on Monday, using Bharat Biotech's Covaxin vaccine. Also on Monday, Indian authorities reported more than 33,000 new COVID-19 cases and 123 deaths. 1,700 were Omicron cases. The UN Children's Agency UNICEF estimates India has the largest population of adolescents in the world, with about 253 million.
Philippine shares start the new trading year deeply in the red following the reimposition of tighter curbs against COVID-19 in the capital region. Michelle Ong reports.
Philippine shares were sold off on the first trading day of the year as the spike in COVID-19 cases gripped investors, and the capital and nearby areas were placed under stricter quarantine restrictions. For the day, the PSE index fell 81 points to close at 70.41, with decliners beating advancers 141 to 66. COL Financial's April Litan says the surge isn't a big surprise to investors. Worst case, we could see another flat finish this year. But there's actually more upside now to the market, with companies better prepared with their playbook.
I don't think there was much of an animal spirit anyway. You think about it, notwithstanding the fact that we loosened our restriction in the 4th quarter. The market, hardly moved. It was just there. So I wouldn't say that, we enjoyed much of that positive sentiment in 2021, because I think that a lot of investors are, even before we had this latest surge, everybody you talk to who goes out and who sees what's going on are saying we're going to have a surge this 2022.
In corporate stories, Philippine Airlines emerges from U.S. Chapter 11 bankruptcy process 4 months after its voluntary filing. This essentially wipes out over $2 billion in debt and gives it additional liquidity, including a $505 million investment in long-term equity from PAL's majority shareholder, Lucio Tan. Under the recovery plan, PAL can also obtain up to $150 million in additional financing from new investors. The flag carrier is ready to restore more routes and flights, build more code-sharing partnerships, expand its cargo business, and accelerate its digitization. PAL Holdings shares closed at 6 pesos when it traded last on June 2021. Michelle Long, ABS-CBN News.
Our final word tonight is a quote from Mahatma Gandhi. If we are to make progress, we must not repeat history, but make new history.
And that is the world tonight, the 3rd of January, 2022. I'm Pia Gutierrez.
I'm Tony Velasquez from the Philippines. Happy New Year. Mabuhay!